Yeah, hello, welcome. I'm Anna. I'm also from the GSO, and we have a little bit of a premiere today because it's Birte's first day at the GSO. So therefore, I told her, hey, I jump in and say a few words about the GSO before you go into the details of the German research system, which Birte is really an expert on. The GSO is a nonprofit organization situated here in Berlin. And even though we're called the German Scholars Organization, we're not only here for Germans. That is more historical fact. Right now, we are supporting researchers who are interested in a career in Germany, either in academia, but also in other sectors. So it doesn't really matter what the background of the researcher is. The focus point is more that we can help with, career options in Germany. And therefore, we help everyone. If you're interested in advice, in programs, we also have a leadership academy for researchers. So if you're interested, check out our website. I'm gonna post it in the link in the chat. But now, without further ado, we're gonna talk about the German research system. Thank you so much and have fun.
All right. Yeah, thank you very much for the invitation and for the opportunity to do this on my first day at work. Happy to be with you. So I first have to thank Anna because she prepared the presentation for me. And what I would like to do with you, talk to you about in the next approximately an hour so that we have enough time for your questions afterwards, is give you a little presentation on doing research in Germany so that you hopefully get a good overview on the basics of the research system so that you can make informed decisions for your next career step, be it in academia or maybe also outside of academia in Germany. Now, first of all, because I saw you are quite a few people, about 50 persons attending. So maybe you could write shortly in the chat if you are still doing your PhD, you finished your PhD, and where you are currently based. That would be interesting to me so that I know whom I'm speaking to. So feel free to write in the chat. All right, I'm not seeing anything yet. Yeah. I see Emanuel from Göttingen or at Göttingen. All right, okay, so very diverse. Master student in PhD students and postdoc also, okay, also in different stages of your PhD, nice. All right, okay, so keep it coming. I will start nonetheless. Let's move to the second. Yeah, so that's basically me. If you want to get in touch with me afterwards, you already have my email address and how to follow us on LinkedIn and on the web. Now, what I want to do today is, well, first maybe ask you another question. That's a slide that Anna prepared from a previous conference, the so-called To Be Honest conference that the GSO is organizing. And here you find a few things that people mentioned that first came to their mind when they were asked what's their impression of the German research system. So maybe you have your own thoughts on that already, because you are in Germany, either doing your master's or your PhD or having completed your PhD. So I'm pretty sure you have some very good impressions, personal impressions and professional impressions of the German academic system. Here we had some people who mentioned, for instance, stiffness and rigidity. So as you might know, Germans are not very well known for their humor. I'm an exception, of course. So some people said that, you know, the system has like very tight rules. You need to know what to do, how to do it, whom to address. So there are a lot of things that that you need to know in order to be able to progress with your career. Someone also described it as a maze. I think that's a very nice picture. You get in somewhere, and when you get in, you might not necessarily know the way to get to your goal. So there are all kinds of ways that you can turn to. And hopefully my presentation today will help you get a little, you know, make the maze a little bit more clearer. Also, one person attending the conference said she actually had a pretty good impression of the German academic system, German research system, because it's pretty open to get into. It offers a lot of services. It offers a lot of opportunities. So she was actually pretty happy to complete her research accommodation research here in Germany. And maybe let's open the floor to you guys. Maybe you want to shout in if you have a certain impression, something that comes to your mind regarding the German research system. If you like, feel free to share and let me know what your initial or current impression of the research system is. All right, maybe we come back to that later after a little warm up. Okay, so that's basically let's see if we can collect a few impressions later. So I'm gonna tell you what I want to talk to you about today. Well, first of all, let me start with a little overview on the research landscape in Germany. So basically, who are the players, the institutions, so that you get this this little overview. And the second part is under the title "The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly," to talk a little bit about challenges and hurdles within the German academic system, career paths, how to proceed from masters to the ultimate professorship. And in the end, I would like to share a few links and institutions where you can get more information, because that's basically one of the challenges, I would say, especially if you come from a different academic system. It's hard to find the right information because there's a lot of information out there. So I'm going to share with you a few links in the end. Okay, so basically, to give you an overview of the research landscapes and the players in Germany, of course, you have here in the middle the cute little house, the university, or also universities of applied sciences. Maybe some of you studied at a university of applied sciences. So basically, it's supposed to be the more practical university education, and also with regards to professors at universities of applied science, they tend to have, before they proceed or before they get the appointment for a professorship, they tend to have a lot of practical information, practical experience, such as having their own company or working at the same time in their own company. So making the link between the academic education and the practical work life. Studies there also, like study programs, tend to be more practical oriented with more, for instance, internships, practical phases, etc. And one thing about the universities of applied sciences, so Fachhochschulen, basically, is also that it only started recently that they were able to also admit PhD students. In some German states, this is already possible, but I think it's still the minority. So basically, if you want to do it, if you want to do your PhD, then a full university is still the option, but it changes, and more also universities of applied science open up for a PhD in certain programs. We have in Germany a really, apart from universities, quite a large landscape of non-university research institutions. I'm going to show you a map afterwards, a really cool graph. You might know the Max Planck Institute or a Leibniz Association or Helmholtz Association. So basically those are research institutes not belonging to university, but they often offer very good research opportunities, very good programs. A lot of networks tailored to the research discipline, to the research field. Next up, we also have a lot of government-funded research institutes. I'm going to show you a few examples afterwards also. So they could be either run by the central government, affiliated to ministries, commissions, or to the states. So you might know Germany has 16 states. So the landscape gets very complex there if you look at what's affiliated to the central government level or to the states, so to the Bundesländer. So if you're looking to pursue your academic career further, you might not only look at open positions or research areas, research profiles of universities, but also of those non-university research institutions. In German, maybe you have heard that word, we also call them außeruniversitäre Forschungseinrichtungen, so the short is often AUFE. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail afterwards. Of course, if you look at the left upper side of the slide, industry is also a huge part of or a huge opportunity to pursue further research, because many companies have their own, of course, their own research and development departments, and they are looking for highly qualified PhD graduates. So if that is something that you're interested in, I think it's also worth checking out, not just to look into the academic landscape. Foundations, so many foundations, I think, in Germany. I will also give you a link afterwards on where to check what funding opportunities there are around with foundations. And of course, ministries, commissions, so everything affiliated to the government could also be an opportunity where to look at. Maybe I forget, if you feel you have a question in the middle of me talking, please feel free to interrupt me or write in the chat. I'm trying to have my second eye on the chat and not to miss your questions. Okay, that's a little bit from the previous slide to go a little bit more into detail. Here you can see on the left side the four big associations with research institutes based all over Germany. Some of them you might find in big towns like in Berlin, Cologne, Hamburg. But they also have a lot of research institutes in smaller cities and towns. A lot of them are also connected to universities, especially if you're doing a PhD, for instance, at one of the Max Planck Institutes. You will also be affiliated to one of the collaborating universities. Universities and universities of applied sciences, I also already mentioned. So with more than 400 higher education institutions in Germany, that's quite a lot. As I said, spread it throughout the country. I used to work in Cottbus, which is a smaller town, so they have a university, a technical university. So that's maybe also something that you want to keep in your mind. For instance, if you think you are like a person that really needs to live in a big city, then maybe it's not such a good idea to apply for a position at a university in a really small town in the countryside, and vice versa. If you enjoy living in smaller towns, because it's easier to make new friends, to meet people, then yeah, I recommend checking where is actually the place you are applying to or want to move. You know, if you feel this city or town has something to offer to you also for your life. Life should be all about working. Yeah, with the federal research and development institutions, one of the better known, especially since the Corona pandemic, is, for instance, the Robert Koch Institute, but also something like the Federal Institute for Materials Research and Testing. So those are both federal state level huge R&D institutions. And if you go down to the level of the 16 Bundesländer, the states, here you can find more than 100 research institutions, for instance, the DFKI. So they are like really tailored to specific research disciplines. And as I mentioned, companies and industrial research might also be a good thing. Even, well, yeah, I would say not only look for, you know, the very common big names, big company names, but also for smaller and middle-sized companies, SMEs, because they are a lot, as you know. I mean, Germany claims to be the land of engineers and of innovation, and there are a huge number of smaller and middle-sized companies who are really innovative and looking for international talent to work with them. And also the GSO is trying to connect recently more and more academics, post PhD, with companies who are hiring and who are interested in highly qualified talent. All right, let's move on to the next slide. That I think is a really interesting slide, because even for me nowadays, sometimes it's hard to assess, okay, there's this institute, they're offering a position that might be interesting for me, but what exactly are they doing? Who are they affiliated to? How are they funded? Also, I think very much an interesting question that you might do a little research on before you apply or before you sign a contract with someone. You know, where are they getting their money from? Is it like public funding, federal or state level funding, or is it private funding, for instance, from a foundation, company, etc.? So basically in this matrix, you can see which institution or which network of institution is located where. All right. Yeah, I can. I'm just looking at the chat. I will get to the postdoc options later on. I will not forget it. All right. Do you want to say anything about the associations in greater detail? No, let's maybe, if you have specific questions, let's put that to the discussion. And let me move on. So also with regards, it's not only the German academic landscape or research landscape, it's not only very complex with regards to what kind of institutions there are, but also with regards to funding. So basically the biggest, I think, I hope so, it's the biggest funding organization is the German Research Foundation, DFG, with a lot of high level and yeah, also in scope, very rich funding programs. where you can apply. I think the earliest early career programs they have is for postdocs. So you have to have completed your PhD. They do have individual funding lines. They also have funding lines for research groups where a university or an institute has to apply for. So of course, they also have a newsletter. So if you're interested in what they are currently funding or what's upcoming, I recommend registering to their newsletter. European Union, of course, a very big and complex program. It's that complex that people are actually sometimes a bit overwhelmed with what you have to do in order to apply for funding there. So it seems to be a very complex process. The ARD, German Academic Exchange Service. Some of you might already have had the chance, for instance, if you got a scholarship or attended some summer school. So they're basically funding Germans going abroad in all career stages, from student up to postdoc, and also vice versa. So internationals coming to Germany to study, research, etc. There are, in fact, so many funding opportunities that I think this would be like a separate 1-hour talk to go into greater detail. That's why I put you 2 links on the bottom of the slide, which I would recommend. One is the ELFI database. It has a German and English interface, and it updates regularly all open calls for funding, also for all career stages, from students up to postdoc. And you can even, if you get a profile, if you register with them, you can even set your own search profile so that you get notified once a new funding opportunity in your field of research or for your career stage is available. So I used to work a lot with that database. It's a bit complex. It takes a while to get into it, but then I think it's a very substantial database to work with. Foundations, of course, we listed here a few of the bigger ones. Also, GSO is cooperating with foundations, with the Klaus Tschira Foundation and Carl Zeiss Foundation, to have 2 funding programs for postdocs. So there is a lot of funding available, but it really, I think it really takes time to prepare, to read into what they are offering, if you fit their profile. I think it's also always worthwhile, if you're not sure, to maybe call in if they have a contact person, to get some additional information, because nothing is more stressful than investing a lot of time in an application, and then in the end you realize, okay, I wasn't the perfect fit for this program. So I think it's better to spend some time in the beginning, do a little research, and then put in a wonderful application that really fits the profile of the funding agency. Okay, let me just check the chat. Okay, you're already connecting. That's nice. All right, thank you. I see Anna is also looking at the chat. That's nice. Thank you for that. Okay, so that was just a short glimpse into the research landscape. Maybe we come back to that in the question and answer session towards the end. Now, what could be challenges, pitfalls, and hurdles in the German academic system, in the research system? Let me see. Yeah, so you're asking 5 persons, you will get 5 different opinions, very much based on their personal experience. So me, myself, being a Berliner by heart, of course, I would recommend coming to Berlin. So this person here from the US had a really good impression on her his stay in Germany. Also, what many people mention are that the facilities are quite up to date, of a very high level. Also, I would recommend this is something you can check on when you want to apply to a specific institution. What you can find on the internet, you know, how are their facilities set up? Do they have everything you need? Are they cooperating with other institutions? For instance, if it comes to, I don't know, let's say lab work, doing some tests, running models, whatever. So I would also put this on your checklist to prepare for your applications or for your new job appointments. And I think it's also something to ask for in an interview, or even to find someone, you know, who's working, let's say, at a specific Max Planck Institute in Berlin or in Hamburg. If you can meet through your network, for instance, on LinkedIn or ResearchGate, people who are working there or who have been working there, to get a better impression on how the working environment is, how what they offer for people working there. So get as much information as you can through online research and your networks as you can. I think that's that's my personal recommendation. We also have, as I think with any academic system, there are a lot of challenges here. We have marked in yellow a few things that especially internationals doing research in Germany complain about, let's say, or remarking. One is that sadly, you might have made that experience already if you did your PhD in Germany or progressed to a postdoc, that the duration of the contract is often very limited. So unfortunately, there are still a lot of contracts like for several months or a year and then gets renewed. And this can sometimes be very frustrating because you want to plan your life, you want to plan your career. I think it has gotten better in the last couple of years when I started with my PhD and even before that. So yeah, in the last 50 years, there were much more PhD scholarships. The bigger funding institutions, they now switch to actually giving positions, which is better because you pay you pay your health insurance, you pay taxes, you are entitled for unemployment services if you are in between positions. So getting a contract is, of course, for Social Security nicer than just having a scholarship. But still, there are a lot of people in the German research system jumping from one contract to another. We cannot change that, but slowly, hopefully building up a lobby. So let's take it just as something to remember that this is a challenge. Also, you might have made that experience by yourself, that I think in Germany we still have a lower percentage of, for instance, female researchers in the natural sciences, in computer science, and more in social sciences, health sciences, etc. Also diversity, I think it's also on a good pathway to development, because the last 10 or even more years, especially with the larger influx of international PhD students. So I think the diversity is increasing in Germany, but it also depends on where you are. Of course, in Berlin and Hamburg, you have a wider variety of people from different backgrounds, countries, cultures, etc., than in a smaller town. Okay, someone reminded me to, in the chat, to switch to the presenting mode. Slideshow. Let's see if I can do that. Haven't been working too. Okay, what do you see now? Nothing?
Yes, nothing.
Nothing.
And now we see your slides. It's still the same. I think you should just continue.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yes, you can switch it from there.
Okay, right. And I leave it like this. One more thing, if the last thing marked in yellow on that slide is it has a bit to do with also with the contracts, and I will show you a graph that's exemplifying this. Stable academic jobs. Well, I would say it's Germany is one of the systems that the academic systems where it's the further you progress, especially after your PhD and in the postdoc phase, it's not so easy to really find a stable position. So if progressing towards professorship, of course, but you will find many people who have been actually jumping from position to position, maybe still in the same institution, same university or research institute, but the career path, I would say, is not as stable and predictable as, for instance, in the United States or in Great Britain, where you have a much more developed tenure system. So that's, I would say, one of the big challenges in the German academic system. All right. To sum it up, yeah, some of the things I already mentioned. One thing that I discussed today also with Anna is you see that on the right upper side, someone mentioned a challenge in the German research system is a glass cube. So you all might know the problem with the glass ceiling. You know, so at some point, a lot of people are banging against the glass ceiling wall and cannot get through. But it might also sometimes be difficult to get into like an institution or in a new position from the side. So you have still, I think in Germany, I think it's getting lesser, but you have people who have been grown in one university, like they did their masters, progressed to the PhD in the same institution, and they want to stay in a place an institution which they know, maybe also for family reasons, you know, settle down. But if you are coming from the outside and maybe you don't have a good network or contacts in that institution, some people find it difficult to actually get into that new institution. So that's just a few things to bear in mind. Here you can see it's still from also from a statistical perspective, what people in two different surveys, one of them the GSO did by themselves 2 years ago, and also second survey, so results combined. German language. Well, while I would say research is already pretty international in Germany, so you can do your research or complete your studies in English in Germany and have a working environment where it's possible to discuss everything in English. When you have to deal with German university administration, you might have also encountered that there it might get difficult. For instance, in the human resources department, you might face the problem that everything is in German, all documents, or only part of it translated, or that the people who you need to deal with don't speak English very well. So it's definitely, I mean, it's always a good reason, a good thing to learn the language of the country you live in. But I also understand that if you are doing your PhD or working on your career, there might be little time to improve your German skills. Also, since German is not such an easy language to learn. But if I think what really like adds up to your CV is if you can manage the German language as good as possible, because it really will help you like to feel or to get along better in the place that you are working. At least a little bit of German helps, I think. Bureaucracy, that's what many people mention. You have to fill in a form for everything, but maybe you also encountered other research systems. Like I once had a talk with someone who did part of his education in France, and he said, well, after being in France and then coming to Germany, I had the impression everything was so easy in Germany. So it also depends on where you're coming from and what your previous experiences are. But yeah, Germany is known to be a bureaucratic state. Understanding the system, definitely. And I really liked what Professor Opolo was mentioning before, that it's helpful to have a mentor. It's always helpful to talk to the people you are working with in order to understand
Hello?
definitely a very important factor. And last but not least, uncertainty. So that's what basically I mentioned before, you know, that you have the challenge not to be able to get a long-term contract, or not to know what your next career step really is. So sometimes the career path tends to get a bit fuzzy, I would say. Okay, here's we collected a few impressions of attendance of the To Be Honest conference at the organized by German Scholars Organization. I would also recommend, you know, if you go to our website, there's a pretty comprehensive section on career knowledge, consequently updated, with a lot of good tips by people who are in the system already, handing out really good tips on how to navigate your way. So it's really worthwhile to check out the GSO website and the career advice section from time to time. Okay, let's move on. I think we had that question also in the chat to academic career tracks in Germany. Well, the undergrad system, bachelor and master, progresses to the PhD. It's also very different of how long your PhD might take. Maybe some of you have been in a structured program where it's pretty much managed with a lot of checks and balances that you are able to finish with your PhD in time. So everything, well, for me, it took me like 5 years to complete my PhD. Let's skip that. Well, go back maybe once more. You might, well, when you did you're doing your PhD, you also had the experience that your previous grades were checked in Germany. So you might have also noticed that all kinds of certificates, even to have certificates in the original, that's something very important in Germany, I would say, that you have everything documented. So we like to collect our certificates. And once you completed your PhD, then it's basically I would say that's fuzzy phase, the postdoc phase, because everyone can be counted as a postdoc who has completed a PhD and is not even working any longer in academia. And you will find very different categories of postdocs. So of course you have those people employed at a university or research institution and doing their postdoc research. You might also have people who completed a PhD and then moved on to work in a company. So postdoc is actually not that easy to differentiate as for the PhD, I would say. We have on the way to a permanent professorship, kind of a bottleneck. You can see that in that graphic, that graph already. So while in Germany we are training a lot of young people to do their PhD, with postdoc positions, you might have experienced that as well. It already, the bottleneck is already closing a little bit. So not everyone, by far not everyone who has completed a PhD can and will and has the chance to proceed to a postdoc. And even less people are pursuing to a permanent professorship. So yeah, between postdoc and professorship, there is this bottleneck, and what people, well, titles that people have or functions that people have is, for instance, working as a researcher in a junior research group. I can say something about that also later. Habilitation, there will be an explanation afterwards. Group leader, and also the so-called junior professorship. And on the way to the professorship, you might know you will be appointed as a professor. So of course you can hand in your application, but the technical term is you will get appointed to that. And for those of you who ask themselves what a W2 and W3 means, that's basically refers to the salary system of professorships. It is a lifelong contract, both categories, and most people, not all, but I think most are appointed as civil servants also. And below that, for the junior professorship, you see that that's a W1 category, which is not yet a permanent appointment. So it's usually for a couple of years, depending on the position that the university or research institution is advertising. Okay, now that's the full picture of career tracks available to people who have a PhD degree. So you can see basically the university, working in a university or research institution is just one option. For instance, if you look to the left, what I did after my PhD, I left academia and I went on to work in science management and administrative positions. So you still will be working very closely with researchers, academic, but you might help them actually in their research, but you're not doing research or teaching by yourself anymore. So that's, I would say, a growing job market in Germany in the last couple of years. It's evolving. And also industry and non-profit sector, there are a lot of job opportunities for people with a PhD degree, but outside of academia. So if that's something that you are interested in, I really think it's worthwhile to check from time to time open job positions, because you will see a lot that are specifically open for people with a PhD degree. But if you are, let's focus on that, if you are planning and hoping to continue your career in academia after your PhD. So basically, that's the time in your postdoc phase to work on your research and teaching experiences. That's also both, research and teaching necessary to attain eligibility for a professorship. They call it Berufungsfähigkeit. And the postdoc phase is supposed to be 2 to 4 years. In practice, anything can happen, can be longer. And what like the classical pathway would be is that at some point in your postdoc phase, you are working on your very own research project and are writing actually a second book, treatise, or it's also common in some disciplines to do that cumulatively. So basically the habilitation, which you can see if you look at the titles that some people have, it's the Dr. Habil, which basically means this person has published a second book on the research after the PhD, and therefore attained the formal qualification and ability to teach in a certain subject, and is therefore also eligible to apply for a full professorship. The junior professor is something not so old. I don't know when they actually introduced it, might be 15 years now, approximately. So it was basically the idea to give a career boost to younger postdocs to prepare for professorship. It's temporary, up to 6 years. Some universities do offer a tenure track option, but that's very much depending on the institution and also on the state that you're doing it in, because not every university actually has the financial means to guarantee that all junior professors they are appointing will stay and proceed to a full professorship. But it's something worth looking in if you want to proceed on your academic career path. And your research groups. So there, that's actually a chance to gain your first leading experience, like leading a team. Also, like leading your own master students, PhD students. For those positions, for instance, if you look at the DFG, German Research Foundation, you have to look very closely on what their eligibility criteria are. Leading a junior research group can also be acknowledged as an equivalent for habilitation, which in that turn allows you to apply for a professorship. Okay. I would say, because really it's, there's the all information on the research landscape is so dense that I think it's wise to keep in mind a few players where to get more information. Research in Germany is definitely a good website with a lot of information on how the system works, how the structure works, if you want to look that up again. The ARD also has some good insights, I think. And in the middle, the Deutsche Hochschulverband could also be helpful for those of you who are already on a pathway to professorship, because that's basically the professional association for people on the way or already arriving at a professorship. They give legal counseling. They can check work contracts if there are any unclear things, pitfalls, etc. So that's also maybe a good tip to look into. All right, skip that. Let me see if I forget anything. Yeah, where to? Last but not least, before I would open the floor to your questions and maybe look into the chat also, some self-advertisement. So if you like, go to the website of the German Scholars Organization, get our newsletter, or also you might want to book an appointment with me, because from now on I will be very happy to do the career counseling. So you can book appointments with me if you want to have your CV checked, or you have general questions or on how to proceed with your academic career. Also, I very much recommend the website. If you look at the lower right side, there's the facts, tools, that's yeah, collected some very insightful information. And also, going back to what Professor Okolo said, you know, build your network, try to talk as much as you can to people who are working in institutions that you are interested in fields that you are interested in, and connect, ask them all kinds of questions, build your network, because it really helps not to be alone out there, and you really will notice that a lot of people out there are actually facing the same challenge, and it's nice to get to talk and exchange views and own experiences. Okay, I would say I stop here, and I'm happy to answer your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That was amazing and very informative. Other questions? If you have questions, please drop them in the chat section. And let's also thank Dr. Seffert for the wonderful talk. It was nice how you touched on going into a PhD, doing a postdoc, and all the resources that GSO has to offer. Thank you, and thank you, Anna, for also sharing important tips in the chat section. Yes, please, let's take questions. If you have a burning question you would like to ask, please post it in the comment section, and then I can read it out. So a lot of people are saying thank you, thank you. Okay, this is the time to engage. This is the time to ask questions. If you have questions for Professor Okolo as well, you could also use this opportunity. So it's going to be like an interactive session. We have only a few minutes, so let's make the most of it. Okay, there is a question here from Bravo. So he says he thinks he's behind on how one acquires the title of Dr. Habil, and what does it help towards, how it helps towards becoming a professor.
Yeah, so in the traditional, let's call it traditional career path to full professorship in Germany, it's still very important to have the Habil. So to actually, well, as I said, it's the formal qualification to teach and in a certain subject. So they will not, it's not only about having published like your second book and having developed a research profile of your own, but it's also the that you prove that you are able to teach. So basically, you can see it in the end as kind of an exam, I would say, where you have to prove your teaching ability, your knowledge in a certain field.
Thank you. Maybe I can follow up on that question. So how do you actually get into habilitation? What is the difference of getting into this track as against getting into the other ones? What differentiates it?
Well, I think you have to. It's depending for one thing on the 16 different German states. They might have different rules as to who and how can proceed to habilitation. So there it already gets a bit complicated, because you might have to check or talk to someone who knows the legal guidework of your own state, like for instance Berlin or Brandenburg or North Rhine-Westphalia. And then also the universities might have different regulations. So it's not an easy question to answer from a general point of view that applies to everyone. And you have to find, you have to affiliate to a university where you're actually doing or getting through your habilitation process. And I think Anna also wants to add something to that, if I see that correctly.
Yeah, sure. So that's totally true. So you don't have to worry about habilitation so much right now. So basically, this is one way to acquire, the ability to become a professor. But usually when you're at this stage, you either are a group leader, and often as a group leader, that means that's an equivalent to an habilitation. For instance, they're often cumulative habilitations, where you say, okay, then I put together some papers and then I have to hand them in, and then, it's the same as a habilitation. Or they say, oh, you led a research group that is the same, you're eligible for professorship, we don't need to see a habilitation. But as Birte said, that highly depends on the discipline, and it highly depends on the institution. But again, when you're that far, when you come that far, usually that's, quite a few years into your postdoc, or when you're a group leader, then you also have to be acquainted with the specific institution you're at and the culture of your discipline. And again, talk to people, talk to the DHV, see what they say, how they achieve that path. Because often, as Birte said in the beginning, the German academic system is a little bit of a maze. There are different rules, they're very strict rules, but it's not often very clear how they apply. So yeah, don't worry too much about the habilitation right now, because you're all PhDs or postdocs, but focus on getting the hard currency for that. So make sure you publish well, you get third-party funding, but also to network and to connect to people, and also talk to group leaders, talk to young group leaders who are actually in a position that you would like to go. Ask, what did you do? What was important to you? So that is more important than, all the very legal specifics right now. You will get there early enough.
Thank you very much. Are there further questions? So I'm going to ask a very controversial question. Based on my experience in Germany, I've come to find out that as an international, you're mostly placed in a box. And it's very difficult to constantly get out of this box. And also in my time, I've really not seen many professors in Germany that look like me. So really, what are the chances, It does not seem like an international has the same chance as a local person. So why should we even commit to this journey, knowing how difficult it is, and knowing that as internationals, there's even more, we have to do even more to compete with a local. Yeah.
Yeah, I can totally understand. It's well, I would say in general, that's not maybe not so much a very specific German problem, but in general a problem that if you took the great step to actually leave your home country and pursue an education and a career in another country, you have more to learn because you didn't grow up in that system. I can see that, for instance, for those who went to school here, you know, we have learned, for instance, how to write a CV. But if for those who are coming to do their masters or even later to do a PhD, if I looked at the CVs, you would of course do it as you have learned it with your background. And there's you have to indeed to learn much more and in a very short period of time oftentimes. And if you have to do well, of course you have to do at the same time, you have to focus on your study, on your research. Maybe you want to learn the language. So of course the burden is much, much bigger. And if there is a reward, well, no one can unfortunately guarantee it. But I think it also depends a little bit on, you know, how clear. Well, part of it is, I think, how clear your focus is, if you really know what you want to do, why you want to do it. Motivation is always, I think, a big thing, and what you are able to do and what you want to do to pursue that path. But I'm not going to say that it's easy. I totally agree with you. I would actually say pursuing a career in academia is challenging even for German nationals, at least once they have completed their PhD, because of the bottleneck. The bottleneck is there for everyone, but for some, as you described it, it's even smaller. So, and I think one thing that has been mentioned here before also by Professor Okolo is really, you know, the less people you know, the more important it is to make connections, to get your networks. And I know that sometimes it's frustrating, but I think it's also very worthwhile, and it's basically one of the important things that can help you along the path. And I really hope, that's my special hope, you know, this country is developing, and I hope it's developing in a better way, in a more inclusive way, in a more open way. Yeah, I think we all, you and me and the rest of the people attending here, are part of this process.
Thank you very much. I think Anna wants to say something.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, look, yes, there is a glass ceiling, and there is a glass ceiling for people of color, for sure, in Germany. And I think there is structural racism, and there is structural racism also in German institutions. And I think we don't have to discuss that you probably have experienced that, and that is a fact. The thing is, like, Germany really has a problem with being international and getting the best people. And the best people means you have to have you know, a larger pool of people. And they slowly discover that what they call the global South is like a huge untapped potential of really smart people, right? So definitely, yes, there are all these problems, but I can only advise you, be the role model that you wish you had, right? You have to maybe be the avant-garde and break down some barriers, but for sure don't let all these things put you down. And there's some really cool people. There is, for instance, a first Black Max Planck director in Freiburg. You know, look at these role models, see what they do, talk to people. You are a really great group of people, you know, exchange experiences and help each other. And I think that is very important.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. So I'm really glad you didn't sugarcoat it. So thank you. I'd like Professor Okolo to say something about this, because I mean, he's a professor here, he's Black, and he has first-hand experience on this. So it would be nice to hear your thoughts, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Birte, and thank you, Anne, for the contributions on this topic. My personal experience as an academic, and you know, basically trying to climb up the academic ladder. It is tough, as you mentioned. There's a glass ceiling, and there are barriers, not just for you as a foreigner, but also for the German academics. It's not easy, you know, to get across that barrier. I did my PhD in Max Planck Institute, and decided to go for a postdoc at, then it was Universität Karlsruhe, or today we call it KIT. And I arrived at just about the same time as a gentleman whom I didn't know at Max Planck, but he became a professor here, and he hired me basically. And but I knew immediately that there was a role for me to play in his group, and that it was important that I won his confidence. This was important. And I considered him as a mentor, and you know, he took me as a junior colleague, and for him it was a case of I'm a project, and he has to make that project succeed. So as you climb through your career as an academic, you need to find this person. The person might be there within your PhD group. The person might be in a completely different university, but you need to find this person if your goal is to climb the German academic ladder. But he was also quite honest with me. At some point, he said to me, "You've overgrown my group, and we need to find something else for you to do." And he also said to me, "I'm not trying to drive you away from my group. I'm trying to open up a new possibility for you." He said this to me. And one day he walks up to me and says, "I've just come back from the German university in Cairo, and the president of that university said, I want you to find me a young professor who would come and help build up a faculty here." And he thought about me. So that's how, within essentially 5.5 years of finishing my PhD, I had a full professorship. And I went off to Cairo. The entire review process, the entire professorship awarding process, everything went through the University of Stuttgart, because that's the administering center for the German part of the cooperation with Cairo. And so it is possible for you to advance. And one of the things I've noticed within the past 10 years here, at least here in Germany, is that we're beginning to see more and more English-based programs coming to the universities. And you need to position yourself there as well. I see the German academic system opening up to accommodate researchers whom are very firm in English language, researchers whom they are willing to create portfolios for these researchers to be able to move them forward. It is happening. You just need to be at the right place at the right time. And as I said, essentially need to distinguish yourself. All those things your peers who are also Europeans are unwilling to do. Basically staying long hours in the lab, doing all the manual labor and all that. You need to be willing to do it, because that's one way to say, I'm a reliable person in this group, and I need to be supported. I don't know what else to say, but it is possible. So, and I can say that I'm a testament to that. And even after I came back from Cairo, I still got a professorship at another university here in Germany. So it is possible. Don't be discouraged. Don't feel frightened by some of the things you see. You just need to focus and push and push and push and push, and that frontier would move. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Oh, that was a little bit heavy. I want to say something.
Yes, thank you, Kiola. Briefly, it's quite interesting that we have this conversation. Many thanks, Peter and Professor Brandukolo. Just to mention that tomorrow we have a topic on research and diversity, and we'll have more time to dissect this topic and have conversation surrounding how, you know, as Africans, how we can climb the ladder, the academic ladder in Germany. So hopefully Dr. Anna will be joining us as well to have this conversation, and some other scholars within Germany and also Germany. So join us again tomorrow, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think I saw someone with a raised hand before.
So I actually thought we want to invite Dr. Ibrahim to say one or two things about this topic as well.
Okay.
I guess he's still online, Dr. Ibrahim?
Yeah.
Yes, I think Dr. Brando has said it all. And I think, I mean, all our guest speakers have been able to touch all the main points. It's a journey for every one of us. And like you said, we should continue to push. And I think many of us, we've been pushing and we are not tired. And I think that's why we are also here to also have, let's say, a kind of, I mean, to spread the energy, because, I mean, the more we spread the positive energy, the better for us. So we should not be led down by the societal norms or the kind of, some kind of, I mean, different kind of forces, but I just feel it's possible. Let's just continue to do that. And I think some days ago, I also shared something in the WhatsApp group. I don't know, maybe Dr. Tawi, you saw this?
Yes, I
think
did.
the first Black professor who is a professor of racism or something like that here in Germany. So I think he's from, I think he should be from one of the West African countries or so. So, I mean, things are changing, and I believe, and DAD is also supporting a lot of new English speaking programs. So I believe all these positions are there for us. And especially all the centers of academic excellence that are being established by the German government, they are also opening up spaces for a lot of us to go back and teach and become more or less like maybe a visiting scholar, visiting professor as a gradual process. And I think these are some of the discussion which we shall be touching very soon, because I believe there are a lot of opportunities that we can explore. We should not just focus on only the habilitation to become a professor or maybe a junior professor. Some of us might go to the industry and become an industrial professor and get back to the classroom. So different things place. So there are several opportunities, and I believe we can get it right. And even development corporations are there. They also need our expertise, because they know you guys, you have deep knowledge of this. And when you get there, you begin a research out of the job you do with them. And I believe the doors are open. We should not allow anything to stop us. Thank you.